Bonjour et bienvenue dans cette leçon de français. Aujourd'hui, on va parler au sujet du futur simple. Hello and welcome to this French video lesson. Today we're going to be looking at how to use, how to form, when to use the French simple future tense. The goals of this lesson are simple. Three main goals: to understand what the future tense is and when to use it, to be able to conjugate the regular verbs in the future, and also to be aware of some key irregular verbs in the future simple tense. So the first question we need to answer is, what is the future tense? Now the simple future tense, and we'll call it the simple future to avoid confusing it with the other future tense, is used in a similar way to how we use it in English to talk about what someone will do or what we will do, and something that will happen. So tomorrow it will be sunny, tomorrow I will get up early. It's not the same as the near future tense, which is used to talk about what is going to happen or what we are going to do. For that, in English, we use the verb to go and a verb, and in French, just like in English, we use the verb to go, aller, and an infinitive verb. So, je vais aller, I'm going to go. Je vais écouter, I'm going to listen. That is the near future tense, but today we're focusing on the simple future tense. So our key word for the simple future is the word will. Tomorrow I will go. Tomorrow I will listen to music. It's got that sense of certainty that something is definitely going to happen. So just take a moment to pause the video and think of some example phrases in English that contain the word will, so we can have a think about how we use this tense in English first. And when you're ready, just push play. Okay, so I gave you a couple of examples already, didn't I? So I think I said, tomorrow I will get up early. It's got that different connotation to tomorrow I'm going to get up early. I will get up early, it's got this sense of certainty. Next weekend I will go to the beach. There's no doubt about it, I'm planning to do that, it will happen. So the second question we might ask is, when is this simple future tense used? Well, it's used every time you want to express the idea that something will happen or that someone will do something. So whenever you want to express a sentence where in English that sentence contains the word will, in French, chances are you're going to need to use this simple future tense. So some examples: j'irai à Paris. I will go to Paris. So it's different to je vais aller à Paris. I'm going to go to Paris. Instead of je vais visiter la Tour Eiffel, I'm going to visit the Eiffel Tower, we might say je visiterai la Tour Eiffel. I will visit the Eiffel Tower. And instead of saying je vais étudier le français à l'université, j'étudierai le français à l'université. I will study French at university. So all of these things, they've got that idea of certainty, that this thing is going to happen. So we've completed our first task, which was to understand what the future tense is and when to use it. So hopefully, especially if you're a native English speaker, this should make a lot of sense to you because we use it in exactly the same way in English and we express the same kinds of ideas with it. The next step is to be able to conjugate regular verbs in the future tense. So we've seen some examples. You might have worked something out from those examples, but if not, we're going to look at it in detail right now. So how is it conjugated? First, what makes the future tense and the conditional tense different to other tenses in French is that we don't remove the infinitive ending. We don't remove the er, re, or ir ending from the verb. We keep the verb whole. Then we add the future tense endings to the infinitive. So for example, the verb manger, instead of taking off the er, we just leave it on there, and then we add ai to say I will eat. Je mangerai. And the future tense endings are ai, as, a for the he, she, we form, ons for the new form, ez for the vous form, and ont for the il, elle plural form, the they form. Now you might recognize these endings. You might know exactly where you recognize them from, which is going to be fantastic because it will help you to learn these endings if you already know them, or they might just seem vaguely familiar. And if that's the case, it's probably because you've seen these before with the verb avoir, to have. J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, on a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. So this is the present tense conjugation of the verb avoir, and we can see that the je form, ai, it's the same as the je form ending for the future tense. The same with the tu form, the il, elle, on form. The nu form, we can see ons in there, we just drop the av. The same with the vous form, and then the they form is exactly the same, ont. So if you know your avoir conjugations in the present tense, you already know these endings, which is going to make the future tense really, really simple for you. Another really useful thing in the future tense is that the endings are the same for all verbs. So it's not like in the present tense where you've got to learn a set of endings for ER verbs, a set of endings for IR, and then another set of endings for RE. In the future tense, they're all the same. So with an ER verb, a regular ER verb like jouer, jouerai, je jouerai, I will play, tu joueras, you will play, il jouera, he will play, nous jouerons, we will play, vous jouerez, you plural will play, or you formal will play, and finally il or elles joueront. They will play. So we're just taking jouer in the infinitive, and then we're adding those endings that we can take directly from the present tense of avoir. It's that simple to express the idea that someone will do something in the future tense. Finir, exactly the same again. We're just using the infinitive finir, and then we're adding those endings from avoir. The same ones that we used with jouer. Je finirai, I will finish. Je finirai demain. Je le finirai demain, I'll finish it tomorrow. Vendre, this is where it's slightly different, slightly more complicated, but still quite simple. I'll show you the endings and see if you can work it out. Okay, so instead of using the whole infinitive, we're just dropping that E. So with our E verbs, we just lose that final E off of the infinitive, and then we add our endings. The reason being that because it ends in a vowel, to then have the E and then the A straight next to it, you don't tend to get an E followed by an A in French, so it's quite consistent. We just drop that E, and then we add the endings, the same ones we used for jouer, the same ones we used for finir. Okay, so now that we've had a bit of a brief explanation of how we form, how we conjugate the simple future tense in French, it's time to practice that to make sure that we've got it. So let's just go through the steps again. You keep the verb in its infinitive form, so you don't remove its ER, IR, or RE ending. If it does happen to be an RE verb, you just lose the final E. Then you add one of the following endings. Let's go through them again. AI, AS, A, ONS, EZ, ONT. Okay, so straight from avoir, just remembering that for the nu and vous form, we just lose the AV. So avant just goes to on, and avait goes to EZ. So here you've got some verbs that you need to conjugate. The only one that's an RE verb is prendre, the verb to take, and I've removed that E for you. So all you need to do is look to the left, pick your ending, looking at whether it's a je, vous, elle, il, which form is it, which ending do I use, you pop it on the end, and you're done. It's that simple. So when you're ready, pause the video, complete these, write them down if you can, and then push play when you're ready to go through them. Okay, so let's go through. Je danserai, I will dance. Vous regarderez. You plural will watch, or you formal will watch. Elle prendra, she will take. Ils mangeront, they will eat. Tu écouteras, you will listen. Nous choisirons, we will choose. Okay, now we're going to practice that again, but this time with some longer phrases. Let's have a quick recap. We take the infinitive, then we add our future tense ending, and those endings we can take directly from the present tense of avoir, remembering to drop the AV for the nu and vous form. So here we've got some phrases in the il, tu, nous, il plural, and je form, and you've got the infinitives in brackets. They're all ER infinitives, they're all ER verbs, so you don't need to worry about dropping any E's. You just use the whole infinitive and then add the correct ending. So when you're ready, push pause, conjugate these, and then when you want to go through the answers, just push play again. Okay, so numéro 1, Il jouera au foot demain après-midi. He will play football tomorrow afternoon. Numéro 2. Tu joueras de la guitare demain matin. You will play guitar tomorrow morning. The reason I've given you two with the verb jouer is because I wanted to speak briefly about what happens to the prepositions after jouer. For example, when we talk about a sport like football, we use jouer à or jouer au. When we're talking about a musical instrument, we have to use jouer de, du, or de la. For example, je joue du piano, I play the piano. Je joue de la guitare, I play the guitar. So be careful every time you want to use jouer, just ask yourself, what comes next? Is it a sport or is it a musical instrument? Numéro 3. Nous regarderons le film avec toi. We will watch the film with you. 4. Ils mangeront au resto ce soir. They will eat at the restaurant this evening or tonight. Et finalement, numéro 5. J'écouterai de la musique pendant les vacances. I will listen to music during the holidays. Okay, so we should now be able to conjugate regular verbs in the future tense, at least when we've got the endings there for us to reference, which we will, except for in exams. So that's great, because the more you practice that, eventually you'll know the endings off by heart, and actually, when you've done it lots and lots and lots of times, you won't even be thinking about infinitive, then ending. You'll just know what the words sound like and what the words are spelt like already in their future form. The next step is to be aware of some key irregular verbs. So irregular verbs, there are a number of them in the simple future tense. What makes them different, what makes them irregular, isn't the endings, it's the stem. So instead of using the infinitive, we use a slightly different stem, and the endings we use are the same ones we've been practicing, so that there's nothing to worry about with the endings, it's only the stem that's slightly different. So let's have a look at some of the most important ones. We've got aller, to go, avoir, to have, être, to be, faire, to do or make, pouvoir, to be able to, devoir, to have to, savoir, to know, and voir, to see. So instead of using those infinitives in the left-hand column, what we use is in the middle column. We use a slightly different stem. If you speak any Spanish, you might notice that the irregular stem of aller just happens to be the same as the infinitive of the verb to go in Spanish. The same with être. Ser in Spanish is the verb to be. So because they both come from Latin, it's just a strange coincidence, which makes this slightly easier if you do have any Spanish. But it's only those two verbs that you have a slight advantage with if you do. So let's go through what these would look like when conjugated into the je form of the future simple tense, or the simple future tense. Okay, so in the je form we have j'irai, I will go, j'aurai, I will have, je serai, I will be, je ferai, I will do or I will make, je pourrai, I will be able to, je devrai, I will have to. So those last two we can use with an infinitive after, like je pourrai aller à la plage, I will be able to go to the beach. Or for example, je devrais faire mes devoirs, I will have to do my homework. Then we have je saurai, I will know, and je verrai, I will see. Notice that all of the irregular stems end in an R, so that's the one thing that these all have in common. The only way to learn these is just to write them out, practice using them. You can test yourself on them by having, like we've got on here in a column on the left, the infinitive, column on the right, the irregular stem, and then just doing look, cover, write, check. So covering up the stems, writing them out, checking them, and just using them as much as you can in your speaking and writing, because the more you use them, the more you'll start to just remember them, and the more they'll just come naturally to you in the end. So practice makes perfect. It's really the best advice. To put this into context, I'm going to give you some example sentences, some example phrases that contain irregular verbs in the simple future tense. À l'avenir, j'irai à l'université pour étudier la biologie. in the future, à l'avenir, really key vocab if you want to talk about things that you will do or would like to do in the future. J'irai à l'université, I will go to university, in order to, étudier, study, la biologie, biology. J'aurai beaucoup d'argent et je ferai un tour du monde. I will have lots of money and I will do a tour of the world. Je verrai les aurores boréales et ce sera fantastique. I will see the aurora borealis, or in English we often say the northern lights, and it will be fantastic. Ce sera fantastique. Je serai médecin et je pourrai aider les gens. I will be a doctor and I will be able to help people. So when you're talking about occupations, in French you don't need to say a doctor, you can just say I will be doctor. For example, in English we'd say I am a teacher, in French just je suis prof, I am teacher. And that brings us to the end of this video lesson. Merci d'avoir regardé, thank you for watching. I hope it's been useful. Please feel free to subscribe if you have found it useful. Some next steps you might want to take are to practice conjugating verbs in the future tense. Take the verbs that you use the most high frequency ones, and just conjugate all of them into the future tense, not just in the je form, but into the other forms that you find that you use the most, so that you can talk not just about what you're going to do, but ask someone else what they're going to do, or talk about what your friends or your family members are going to do as well. Learn more about irregular verbs, practice using those irregular stems, and practice writing them out and learning them. Use them in your speaking and writing, and when you feel that you've got the future tense nice and secure, the next tense that makes sense to learn is the conditional, because it uses the same irregular stems, it uses the infinitives, and you just have a different set of a different set of endings to learn.